Imagine a man lost in darkness, his life drowning in alcohol, sins, and regret, until one terrifying night at exactly 3 a.m., he hears a knock on his door, and in his nightmare, a shadowy figure whispers just one word, Iqra, read. He opens the Quran, something he'd never touched before. And from that single moment, everything changes. How did a man who cared about nothing find light in the heart of darkness? How did fear turn into faith and hopelessness into love for Allah? Watch till the end, because this isn't just his story. It might awaken something inside you too. Don't miss it. Your heart needs to hear this. In the depths of the silent night, the rain began as a whisper over the city's tired rooftops, but soon drummed its restless tune against the windows of Assad's small, unkempt apartment. Empty bottles, unpaid bills, and cigarette ashes littered the floor, a landscape of chaos mirroring the storm outside. Assad, barely 30, had already managed to break most of what life offered him. Friendships, promises, and even the quiet respect of his own reflection. He had never really cared. Life, to him, was a reckless game. Nights blurred into dawns in smoky bars. Meaningless laughter, debts piling up like the cigarette butts in his ashtray. He ignored calls from his aging mother, whose frail voice haunted him sometimes in dreams, but whom he hadn't seen in over a year. The Quran on the dusty shelf had belonged to his father, who had passed away long ago, but Assad had never opened it. To him, religion felt like a distant echo from a childhood he had deliberately buried. One night, returning drunk from yet another failed attempt to forget himself, Assad stumbled through an alley he barely remembered choosing. The rain fell harder, soaking his clothes until they clung to his skin like guilt. Then, halfway down the alley, he saw her, an old woman, small and hunched, shivering under the torn remnants of what once might have been a warm shawl. She looked up at him, and in her eyes, ancient, glassy, and inexplicably knowing, Assad saw something that froze him in place. It was as though she saw right through his drunken swagger, past the bitterness and anger, into something smaller, something terrified. She raised a trembling hand, pointing toward the darkness behind him. "Beware, my son," she whispered, her voice rasping like dead leaves. "The night hides more than shadows. Turn back before the call finds you unready." A chill wrapped around Assad's spine. He glanced behind him, but saw nothing but rain and darkness. When he turned back, the woman was gone, leaving only the echo of her warning. Assad shook himself and stumbled home, dismissing it as an alcohol-fueled hallucination. Yet sleep wouldn't come that night. Whenever he closed his eyes, he saw those ancient eyes, the unwavering finger, and heard her voice repeating over and over, "Before the call finds you unready." Over the following days, strange things began to happen. At first, it was small, a mirror cracking without being touched, his phone ringing at exactly 3, only to fall silent when he answered, shadows seeming to shift at the edge of his vision. Then, one night, as he sat on his couch half asleep, he heard soft knocking on his door. 3 gentle, deliberate knocks. Heart pounding, he opened the door, but the hallway was empty. Only the wind whistled through, carrying a faint, haunting scent of old earth and something older, almost metallic like blood. That night, sleep evaded him again. At dawn, exhausted, Assad dozed off, only to jolt awake to a nightmare. In his dream, he stood before a vast black chasm. From its depths rose a figure, cloaked in shadows, whispering verses he couldn't understand. And the figure raised an arm, pointing directly at Assad. And though the words were foreign, the tone was unmistakable, a warning. Shaken, Assad began to remember fragments of faith he had ignored all his life. The call to prayer he used to hear as a boy, the soft voice of his mother reciting Qur'an at night, the stories of accountability and mercy that once had terrified and fascinated him. Yet still, he didn't change. Old habits gripped him tighter than fear. Days turned into nights, and nights into deeper darkness. The knocks kept returning, sometimes so soft they sounded like the beating of his own heart, sometimes so loud they rattled the door. Always at 3 a.m. Then, one rainy night, the horror escalated. Assad awoke to find the air in his room unbearably cold, his breath visible in the darkness. And there, at the foot of his bed, stood a figure, tall, cloaked in black, face hidden in shadow. Its presence pressed on his chest like a weight. Frozen, Assad couldn't scream, couldn't move. The figure raised a long, bony hand, pointing at the dusty Quran on his shelf. In a voice that seemed to echo from stone walls, it whispered one word, Iqra, read. Then it vanished, leaving behind a silence so profound it roared in his ears. Assad sat there, sweat-soaked and shaking. Hours passed before he dared to move, but when dawn broke, he found himself standing before that shelf, staring at the Quran his father had once loved. His hands trembled as he picked it up. The cover was cracked, the pages yellowed, but the words were alive. Assad didn't know how to read Arabic well anymore, but the first verse his eyes landed on was a translation. And whoever turns away from my remembrance, indeed, he will have a depressed life, and we will gather him on the day of resurrection blind. Quran 20:124. Tears he didn't understand welled up and spilled onto the page. A life without remembrance, a gathering blind. It felt written just for him. That day, for the first time, Assad didn't go out drinking. Instead, he sat in silence, reading what little he could, searching for meaning. He didn't know what he was looking for, only that something inside him had cracked open. But his past didn't let go so easily. One night, as he dozed off with the Quran in his lap, the knocks returned. This time, they came not from the door, but from inside the walls themselves. The shadows in the corners of his room grew thicker, almost pulsing, and Assad felt a presence circling him. A whisper rose from the darkness. Too late. Panicking, he grabbed the Quran and clutched it to his chest. The darkness recoiled. For a moment, he saw clearly. Shapes, like smoke given form, retreating into the corners, hissing in anger. From that night on, Assad kept the Quran close, even when he didn't understand all of it. And slowly, the horror began to fade, replaced by something heavier but calmer, guilt. He thought of his mother, of the countless times she had begged him to return a prayer, of her prayers whispered late into the night. Shame seared through him. He found an old prayer mat buried under piles of laundry. Unsteady, unsure of the exact words, he tried to pray. His body remembered fragments. The bowing, the prostration, the raised hands. His tongue stumbled, but his heart, for the first time, felt soft, almost pleading. He called his mother the next day. Her tears cracked his heart open further. She told him she had never stopped praying for him, even when he stopped calling. Over weeks, Assad's transformation began in small, stubborn steps. The bottle gathered dust on the table. The cigarettes were crushed underfoot. He began attending the mosque, at first standing awkwardly in the back. Terrified people would see through him, see the sinner he still felt he was. Yet no one turned him away. An old man with a beard white as salt welcomed him, helped him with the prayer words he'd forgotten. A young man his own age showed him how to read Quran again, letter by letter. One night, as Assad sat under the soft mosque lights after prayer, the imam spoke of tawbah, repentance. He spoke of how no sin was too great for Allah's mercy, how sincerity could cleanse even a heart blackened by years of heedlessness. Assad wept openly, shoulders shaking, the weight of years of irresponsibility pouring from his eyes. In that moment, he understood. Those horrors, those shadows, they were not only curses, they were warnings, mercies disguised as fear, reminders of what awaited if he stayed blind. He decided then to change completely. Mornings began with Far, his forehead pressed against the prayer mat, whispering gratitude he had never known he could feel. He fasted Mondays and Thursdays, a discipline that taught him control over desires that had once controlled him. Nights ended with quiet Quran recitation, his heart slowly softening with each verse. He returned every debt he could find, apologized to those he had hurt. Some accepted, some turned away, but he kept trying. The old friends from the bars mocked him at first, called him brainwashed, but Assad felt nothing but sorrow for them. A year passed. His mother saw a man transformed. Beard grown, eyes softer, smile humble. His past still whispered sometimes. The darkness still lingered at the edge of his dreams. But now he faced it with prayer, with remembrance, with certainty that Allah's mercy outweighed all shadows. One night, years later, as he walked home from the mosque, Assad found himself in that same alley where he had first seen the old woman. The rain fell lightly. The street glistened under dim lamplight. And there, at the same spot, stood the same hunched figure, older somehow, yet unchanged. She looked up at him. "You returned before the call, found you unready," she whispered. Assad's voice trembled. Who are you?" "A reminder," she said softly. "And now, you must become a reminder for others." Before he could reply, she faded into the rain, leaving behind only silence and the beating of his grateful heart. Assad never saw her again, but every dawn, as he raised his hands in prayer, he remembered. Once, in the depths of horror and fear, Allah had reached for his heart. He became a man known not for his past, but for his present. A brother who helped new Muslims learn to pray, who visited prisoners to share the Qur'an, who reminded the lost that no heart was too hard, no night too dark. And though shadows sometimes lingered, his heart clung to light. The words of Allah, the footsteps of the Prophet, and the knowledge that every breath could be a step toward mercy. From a man who had been irresponsible, careless, blind, he became a man guided by Sunnah and Qur'an, his life a testament that even the darkest night could end in dawn. And so he lived, and so he died, in sujud, forehead to earth, whispering the Shahida as dawn broke, ready, finally, for the true call that awaited every soul. If this story touches your heart, like, share, and subscribe. Comment below if you've ever felt lost, and let's spread this message of hope together.